Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another session of Verilog HDL. So in previous sessions, we discussed few of the basic concepts related to Verilog. So in which we discussed regarding comments, white spaces, what is meant by keyword, identifiers, and in previous session, we discussed regarding sized and unsized numbers, and what is the format and what does each say size, base format, and the number specify. Then what is meant by unsized number? So by default, what is the number? If size and base format is not specified, then what is the number treated as? So those are the things what we discussed. So then we also discussed how negative numbers will be represented, and we discussed one of the formats related to the integer numbers, then how real numbers will be stored or represented. So the we had discussed up to this point. And we had seen in this example, we had seen that how the number is actually stored. So here we can observe that A is given a positive value in this case, and when we display, it will be displayed in its format. Now here when it is negative number, we have to remember that it will be stored in 2's complement. That's why it is represented as FFFEDCC. So similarly, others also in the same way. So one important thing to remember is negative numbers will be stored in 2's complement format. So why 2's complement format? Because I don't have any mechanism wherein I can store this negative sign. I don't have any mechanism. Otherwise, it will add an overhead. So to avoid such kind of conditions, what we do is we make use of 2's complement. And another thing is if I want to subtract two numbers, if I want to subtract two numbers, then what I can do is I can convert the numbers into 2's complement and I can add them. So addition or adder is sufficient for the implementation of say the addition part or the subtraction part. So that is another advantage of going for 2's complement. So continuing with the next lesson. So strings is nothing but a collection of characters together. In this case, again, if I have to represent a string will be a sequence of characters which will be placed within double quotes, similar to the one that you have seen even in the C program. Then, apart from that, it must be contained in a single line. So, what does this imply is now if I'm writing something like this, so within the double quotes I will be writing, so I will be putting all the characters. I cannot press enter or move to the next line and then write something and then put double quotes here. That is and the double quotes. So this I cannot treat as string. A string will always be on a single line. It will always be on a single line. Uh, we have some certain conditions wherein we can check those also. Then how I can represent such kind of strings if some special characters have to be put in. Suppose I have to put some. I have say backslash n. So how do I represent that? So those are called as escape sequences. So how do I insert escape sequences? So those are some special conditions what come in. So how you do it in C programming also, you have some mechanisms in order to say introduce those kind of things also in this case. Okay. So here a sequence of characters which is enclosed in double quotes will be treated as a string, or we will define it as a string in Verilog, and it must be contained on a single line. It cannot be placed on multiple lines. So that is what that specifies is this specifies that there should not be a carriage written. Carriage written is nothing but when you press enter, right? The cursor, say there is a line which is present here. You have pressed enter over here. So what happens? The line moves to the next location on the screen. So this itself is termed as carriage written. So this should not be part of the string. Carriage written should not be part of the string. When strings are again treated as ASCII values. and we'll be considering the ASCII values of 1 byte. ASCII values will be considered as 1 byte. So what it implies is, if I have to store a character as a string, so it will consume 8 bits of memory location. It will consume 8 bits. So that is what it specifies. Strings are treated as sequence of 1 byte. So if a string is just one character, only one character is there, this will be consuming around 8 bits of space for this character. Then an example which is given over here, you can see that you have hello world Verilog, hello Verilog world, so which is placed within the double quotes, which is placed within the double quotes. This is a string. Now here you can see that you have this in which a front slash b itself is a string and it is placed within the double quotes. So this is permitted in Verilog. Only thing, keep in mind that you cannot have carriage written and you cannot put it on multiple lines. But if I require some special sequences, like in a few of the things, what might happen is, say in C programming, you might have encountered some of the situation. Say you want to write something as today is Saturday, but before this I want to place a hash. But what happens is hash T is not a printable character. It is equivalent to putting a tab space. So if such kind of things come, then I make use of some escape sequences to indicate that next one also is a printable character. That is, instead of just writing it as slash today, because slash t itself indicates that it is a tab. So instead of that, what I do is I put a escape sequence before that. So even such kind of mechanisms are also there. Even in Verilog also, this problem can occur. I want a certain character, but say it is not supported to be printed. Then I go for escape sequences, which will help me for that purposes. So we have something called as escaped identifiers. So this is what I was speaking in the previous slide. So what does escaped identifier specify? So you can just see it is also a kind of identifier. And what does escaped identifier imply now? Now, Verilog basically allows any character to be used as an identifier. Now, previously, what was the discussion? If I have to give a name to the identifier, it can be either alphabet A to Z in lowercase or capital A to Z or numbers 0 to 9. So these are the possible combinations. And apart from that, you have underscore and dollar. So these are the possible characters which you can utilize to give the name tag to the identifier or to the variable what you want to name. But with the help of the escaped identifiers, what I can do is I can allow any characters to be used as an identifier. Suppose I want at to be used to define a variable. So at times something. I want to define a variable something in this form, or time at something I want to decide, but at is not permitted as per the rules. But if I want it in this form, then what I can do is I can make use of escaped identifier. And then I can use this name as an identifier, wherein at can be used over there. So that is any character can be used as an identifier by using the escape sequence. So how do I specify a escape sequence? How do I include characters which are not permitted to be used in the identifiers what we have discussed previously? So if I have to do that, then what I do is I use a backslash, this thing character, and end that identifier name with a white space. Because what happens is otherwise I'll not be knowing where it is ending. So I cannot continuously keep on moving. So we try to introduce a white space, that is a space, tab, or a new line. So which will indicate that this is the end of the escape identifier. So here one thing to remember is you should have a backslash character in that. So we'll just check out few examples in this case. So all characters between backslash and white space are processed literally. So that will be acting as the identifier here. So back between the backslash and the white space, whichever are present, those all characters will be considered in its literal form. So any printable characters can be included in the escaped identifiers. So this is another convention which falls in this. So previously only characters like underscore and dollar A to Z and 0 to 9. But any printable characters, say let it be caret sign, let it be percent sign, let it be say accent, this thing, let it be apostrophe, anything. So we can use it. Any printable characters can be part of this escaped identifier. So this is just a few example. So here A plus B plus C is the escaped. This total is the escaped identifier. This total is the escaped identifier. These are the characters which are representing the identifier in general. So we have a backslash and then either space, tab, or a enter. Now here you can see that you have a backslash and after these two stars, you have either a space, tab, or enter. So what happens is from this point to this point. So this is the name what you have. So this entire thing is the escaped identifier. So here you can see that we did not have star permitted in the identifier name. But here I am now, I am able to use that star value. So only at the starting you have to put the backslash and then you can use the characters, whatever is required, any printable characters which you want to use. So these are the examples of escaped identifiers. So just a few examples of the escaped identifiers you can just observe. So here, as I discussed here, there must be a white space after the string which uses the escape character. So here backslash is the escape character. Similarly, in C programming also backslash is the escape character when you are using say printf. So you write printf and you want to print something in this form. What is slash n? Slash n is actually enter. So if I print this one, right, it will print as OT. Slash n is enter. So one line will be left, enter will be there, and on next line OT will be present. But I don't want in that one. I want this to be represented. So I can use the escape sequence. So when this is the case, what would happen is it is backslash NOT. So like this, it will be printed. So here the backslash is the escape sequence which is permitted in C programming. Similarly, we have escape sequence in Verilog. So here you have module. So here you can see the first this thing backslash 1 DFF. So DFF is actually an identifier. In general, that is the identifier what we had discussed previously. So this one I want to classify this as this is the first D flip flop. Then next one I want to specify as the second D flip flop. So it becomes easy for me to go around. So there are some this thing. So what I can do is I can put backslash, which is the escape character, and then one, since the first character of the identifier should be either underscore or A to Z or capital A to Z, lowercase or uppercase. So, but now what is happening? You are even now able to utilize any number also, any character also. Here also we can see any number, any character can be acting as the first character of the identifier. So backslash and here we can see the first this thing escape sequence which is presented. So this is normal this thing. Here we can see that to represent q bar, what you have done instead of writing say q bar every time, what you have done is you have specified it as backslash q and you have specified tilde. So which is indicating that it is negation of Q. So you can have it in any form. Okay. So then we have D, then we have clock input. A dollar is permitted. Dollar is permitted. So there is no need of escape character. Then you have star over here. If star is there, then backslash is required. So similarly, we have all these things. So this is how escape identifiers will be useful. So to include new characters which are not permitted in the identifier. So in data types, we have value sets. Verilog supports 4 levels of logic values. So we have first 0 and 1, and the others which are there are nothing but X and Z. So this also we had discussed previously. So X is the value is unknown. This one, what happens is it is we don't know in what level, whether it will be in logic 0 or logic 0, in which level the value falls. So that also we had discussed. So under that, this thing we have tri-state or Z, this thing what is represented. So then we have 8 strength levels. So we'll just see that is from strongest to the weakest. So we have strength levels representation. So then what we can do is the strength levels basically help us to resolve some of the conflicts. Now suppose if you have two signals, that is one is something as strong one and other one is weak one, and both are competing with each other. So which one should be provided the access? So if there is a conflict, which one should be provided the access? So we give access to the strong one. So let us see these conditions. So that is what it implies. We have 4 logic levels, 0, 1, X and Z, and 8 strength levels, which are basically used to resolve the conflicts, which arrive when the drivers try to drive the circuit. So that is what we'll be checking out. So we have values 0 and 1 can have different strength levels. So that in the table we'll just check out. So first let us look at the logic levels or the values. So here we can have 4 different logic levels. That is logic 0, or we also term it as false condition, then logic 1 or the true condition, X is the unknown value, and Z is the high impedance or the floating value. So these are the 4 values, logic values, which Verilog supports. And what is the strength levels? Strength levels lead from strongest to the weakest. So one of the strength levels is related to say supply, which is of type driving, which is the strongest. So again, we have something called as strong. Again, it is lesser than this or equal to this. So it depends on say strongest one, strongest zero, something comes over there. So that again we'll be discussing later. Then we have full driving, and the last when we come right small, which is storage, it is weak. Then high impedance is the weakest. So we have weakest to the strongest. So these are different 8 levels of strength which are present. Supply strong, full, large, weak, medium, small, and high Z. High Z. So these are the different strength levels which are present. So what happens if two signals of unequal strengths, say let us say that it is strong one and weak zero are driven on the wire. So you have say some connections, and you have some output, then it is connected somewhere, then this line is connected from some other output. So here you might be having some multiple things present over here. So what happens when you have a competition to the access? So if two signals are coming in, if two signals are coming in of unequal strengths, then what should be the wire driving? What are the levels which will be driven? So in this case, right, the stronger one will be the dominant one or the prevalent one. So that is strong one will be appearing on the wire, will be appearing on the wire. So next one, another condition which comes is, what if the two signal strengths are equal? That is, say two strengths both are strong. So if that is the case, then what is the strength which will be driven on the wire? So in this case, it is a confusion who has to be given the access or who will be overriding whom. So it's a confusion. So it might go in the tri-state condition. So since the result will be unknown in such cases, we'll not be knowing what will be happening. We'll not be knowing what will be happening in such cases. So result is unknown. It may be either of the signals will be driven on the wire. So what happens if two signal strengths, strong one and I think it is a strong zero, it is a typo error. It's a strong zero are driven on the wire. So both are belonging to strong, but under that again you have strong zero and strong one which is present. Both are at the same level, but slight difference. So which signal will be driven onto the wire? So in this case also what happens is since the strength levels are same, the result is unknown and it specifies that it will be unknown, that is X. The result will be unknown in these cases. So there are three possible conditions. If unequal strengths are present on the wire and they are competing, the stronger one gets the access, the stronger one is driven. If the two signals are of equal strength, that is strength 1 and strength 1, so we'll not be knowing what this thing will be appearing on the overall result. But if two signals are of same strength but slight difference, that is, it is like strong 0 and strong 1. So here what happens is the total result will be unknown. So this is what happens when we are dealing with such kind of conditions. So here the strength levels are basically useful for accurate modeling of the signal contention. So signal contention is nothing but the signals are contending or competing with each other to gain access to the wire, or a signal has to be driven onto the wire. Then which signal will be getting the access to that wire, or which signal will be taking a ride on that wire. So that is what signal contention specifies. So signal strength basically specifies those aspects. So this will be in signal contention, MOS devices, dynamic MOS, and other low-level devices. So we'll be observing such kind of conditions which are happening in the digital circuit. So for the same purpose, we have to have simulation also presented. So it becomes difficult if you're going for some other kind of language. We should go for hardware description language in such cases. So there is only one special storage strength, which is tri-reg nets. So this is one special condition what we have, that is tri-reg nets can have storage strengths which are of large, medium, and small. That is three different possible: large, medium, small. So here tri-reg nets have three different storage strengths. So that is one special thing what you have about tri reg nets. So this will be discussing again later in the coming fourth sessions. So at present, just remember we have four different levels of logic values and eight different levels of strengths. And these strengths are utilized to resolve the conflicts which arise when signals are contending with each other to gain access to a wire. So wire will be has to drive a signal. So which signal will be driven on this wire? So that will be decided by its strength value. Again, in that we have different conditions. What if the signals are of different strength? What if the signals are of equal strength? What if the signals are of strengths, say strong one and strong two? That is, they belong to the same this thing, but slight difference is present. So what happens under those conditions? So that is what we have in this case. So next one, what is meant by nets? So this is a data type. So those are the values what we discussed. Now, actual first data type what we are looking out is nets. So actually we have utilized it unknowingly or knowingly in the previous sessions. So let us go further and see what actually nets imply. It represents the connection between the hardware elements. Now suppose you have a AND gate and you have something as AB. and this AND gate output is given to a OR gate. And there is another one. So here you can see that output of the AND gate is connected to the OR gate with the help of a net. So this is what net represents. So net represents the connection between the hardware elements. So even if I want to connect this, I can make use of say net, or I can make use of reg. So this will be seeing one by one later. So now just check out AND gate output is given to OR gate input. So what we are doing is we are defining that with the help of the data type net. So it basically tries to tell me how the hardware is connected with each other. So in example, when we see, right, that time we'll come to know how actually it is happening. So nets have values continuously driven on them by the outputs of the devices that are connected to it. So here we can see in figure this one 3.1, we have B, C, and A, which are connected to this gate. So in this case, these are the wires which are present over here, how they are interconnected. And if some other this thing comes over here, so how that connection is being established is being defined by nets. So here we have represented that, and since this is a wire, right? For example, if this is a wire, and say this is the AND gate which we have, and say this is one and this is one. So one, what is the output? One. So what happens is this wire is continuously representing logic one. So that is what it represents. It is continuously driving this signal one. So you'll be having a continuous output. Supposing if any one of them becomes one, the output should be zero, and this zero will be driven on this net. It will be driven on this net. So it is nothing but it is the wire what you are specifying. It is the wired connection what you are specifying. So here you can see that net A is connected to the output of, so net A is connected to the output of the AND gate 1. So this is the signal which will be either 0 or 1, and this will be driven continuously from the output of the AND gate. So either it will be 0 or 1. So we are basically trying to specify these things. So net will continuously assume the value computed by the AND gate. So depending on what is B and C. So what is B and C? Based on that, the value of A will be present. That is value of A is nothing but the net A. So now how do I define this kind of data types? How do I specify these kind of data types? I make use of a keyword what we call as wire. So using this keyword, I declare the nets which are present in the circuit or the digital circuit. So here one thing to remember is we are specifying this is a net data type, but this is actually not a keyword. Okay. If I want to specify a net data type, I have to make use of the keyword wire. So if I write something as wire A, so wire A tells me that A is of type net. And what it is telling, it is basically telling me about the hardware connections, how the connection has been established. So when I use this variable, when I use this parameter in say to specify something as AND gate, I give the inputs and outputs. There I'll get to know that what is actually happening, how it is getting interconnected. So remember, net is not a keyword. Okay, net is not a keyword. To define a net data type, we make use of the keyword wire. So net actually is a class of data type. So under class, you can have multiple objects, right? So in that same way, we can have multiple objects related to net. So net is just specifying that it is a class of some data type. So here, what are the different data types which are present under this? So these are the other names. So wire we had already used. Wire falls under net. What are the other elements which fall under net? The other elements which fall under net are WAND, WAR, TRAND, TRIREG. So many stuffs fall under this net category. So it is just a class of data types. So it is holding different class of data types. When you have net, so under this, these are the options what you have. That is, you have option of wire, you have option of WAN, and the other types which are represented. So it is a class of data types. So this is another kind of definition for net also. So this is one definition, this is another definition what you have. Now, what is the default size of the nets? So if I don't specify the size of the nets, the default size is 1 bit value. So that is by default, unless you have explicitly specified that wire or any of these things is a vector. So what is a vector? You had seen some codes, right, wherein you had written something as 3 is to 0, then some a. So we had written something in this form, right? So when we are writing it in this form, this a is a vector. Now, if I'm not specifying anything of this kind, then it turns out to be a scalar. It turns out to be a scalar. So unless and until we specify the size explicitly, by default, the size of the nets will be 1. So if I'm specifying wire as wire A, so it is 1 bit value. But if I change it, say something in this form, that is, if I do this, then what happens is A turns out to be a vector. So which is of how many bits? It is of 4 bits in this case. That is 0, 1, 2, 3. So 4 bits in this case. So default size is 1 bit. Default value will be in tri-state. So you have connected the circuit. You have made the connections. And what happens is if I try to measure something over this, it will be it will be in a tri-state level, because whether it is logic 0, logic 1, it will be unknown. By default, it will be in the tri-state condition. The wire will be in the tri-state condition, or the net value will be in the tri-state condition. So only one special case, that is tri-reg net. It will be in don't care condition. The value is X. Net gets their output values of their drivers. So what is, if you just look at this example, right? So here we have a AND gate, and this is the net value. So for example, I have written it as wire A. So A will be getting its value based on how this AND gate is driving this wire. So net gets their output values from their drivers. That is, in this case, this A is being driven by this AND gate. So which is equal to, this one is actually B and C. So there's a typo error. So it will be equal to B and C in this case. Okay. So this is output A is dependent on this driver. So suppose if you have just a random wire, that is you don't have any connection over here. So I have just placed a wire over here. I have just placed a wire and I'm just writing it as wire A. So if I try to check out what level it will be at, and nothing is driving this. Nothing is driving this. It is just a wire what you're holding in hand. It is something of this kind. So what happens is in simulation it will be treated as its default value will be related to Z. It has not been driven by anything. So always it will be in tri-state condition. So even sometimes by mistake you might have written that and you haven't used it anywhere. So even these things happen. So that is what you can just check out. If there is no driver to the net, then it just defaults its value to the tri-state condition. So we have an example related over here. So what we have declared wire A. So this is nothing but A is of data type net. So declare net A for the above circuit. So that is we have declared this part over here. So which is of type net. Then we have declared another two parameters B comma C. So these are also of type net. These are also of type net. Then lastly here one special this thing is specified. Just give me a second. So here we have declared two types of net data types. That is, so here we can see wire A and wire BC, and we have another one which is specified over here, which is wire D, which is of size 1 bit. So this is size, and it is of type binary, and the value is 0. So this is like you are directly giving the value of 0 to this net data type. So that is what you are specifying. So later, if you want to change, again, you can change it. So these are different ways how we can specify the net data types. So in the coming forth classes, right, how these are being utilized, how these are being utilized. So how do I specify that this is the output for AND gate, this is the output for, this is the input for AND gate. So that is what we'll be checking in the coming forth classes. So we can just check over here if we have so here you can see one example, that is wire A, this is scalar type, wire 7 is to 0, which is of bus. So this is a say data bus or program bus, whatever is there. So this is a vector quantity now. This is not a scalar. So here previously we specified that by default it is 1 bit. Now if I specify this, then it is not 1 bit, it is around 8 bits in this case. And it turns out to be a vector in such cases. So here we haven't used somewhere one example was there. I'll just check out. It must be in the next part. So there we'll just check it out. So today we'll wind up here, in which we have discussed, say, net data type. And in coming forth classes, we'll be discussing regarding integer data types, real data types, how they are stored, how they are represented, then register data types, so memories. So these all things we'll be discussing in the coming forth classes.